first time I heard about Uzi was when there was Season 3 Worlds. Was pretty much carrying every game alone.
They focused on Uzi. He's still alive. He's still surviving. He stays alive.
Since then, I've followed him and I've tried to learn from him. For this tournament, it's been pretty clear that he's a step above everyone else.
Uzi dropping the ignite, able to find the initiation. Uzi with an expert dodge.
我觉得我跟他就是比较像是一个团队里面很核心的一个位置吧。
Unstoppable Xmithie gonna be stopped now by Reckless's damage. Comelter also down, a double kill for the Fnatic AD carry.
The way they play around him is probably the best in the world in terms of AD carry being like the main guy in the team. Being that one-dimensional is not always gonna work. This might actually be the series where they realize that they need to be able to play more than just one style. This is just the best opportunity we've pretty much ever had as this roster to prove that we can do other things than just play around me.
我有感觉到现在是我整体来说实力最强的一次吧，也是我们团队最强。我来到这里是为了拿到冠军。
Welcome to the Zenith Arena, live from Paris, France, home of one of the most legendary crowds esports has ever known. And here you see them now. They do not disappoint with their level of energy and their level of noise as they support their two teams who are about to do battle in our first semi-final bout of the MSI knockout stage. Of course, you're getting a look at the Champs-Élysées here in the City of Lights, a magnificent backdrop for a tournament that has delivered along every stage to this point. Hello, everyone. I'm James Dash Patterson, joined by Joshua Jatleesman, Andrew Vedius Day, and Indiana Frosker in black. I've only gotten to experience the Parisian crowd through my own headset back in Los Angeles. Jat, you've been here before. Is it already measuring up to everything it's ever been?
It's something else. We were here in 2014. They're just as passionate here today, and I can't wait for this weekend.
Yeah, just the historic matchup here going all the way back to All-Stars. Sorry if I sound like I'm yelling, the crowd just erupted behind me.
It's almost hard to hear ourselves even with our own audio being pumped into our headsets. It's not just us here bringing you the party along the way. We also have our 15 other broadcast teams on standby to bring the show to fans across the world. Here you see them now, a truly global event. And with that, we are just approaching the time for the teams to take the stage. And so with the energy filling the arena, it's starting to heat up already. I can feel it. Let's send it over to Chips and Noir to welcome today's semi-finalists.
Et aujourd'hui, on va s'il vous plaît pouvoir accueillir les deux premières équipes demi-finalistes. S'il vous plaît, veuillez faire un tonnerre d'applaudissements pour les RNG, champions de la Chine, menés par leur leader, le légendaire Uzi. S'il vous plaît, ce sont les monstres à battre, les favoris du tournoi. Ils sont sortis premiers de leur phase de groupe. Encore une fois, un tonnerre d'applaudissements pour les RNG. Sur la top lane, let's me. Dans la jungle, le vétéran Corsa. Sur la mid lane, un monstre mécanique, Xiao. Et on a des carries, bien sûr, le légendaire Uzi. Et afin de le soutenir, Ming. Ils seront accompagnés, bien entendu, de leur coach, Hurt. la jungle en remplaçant le très agressif FLICKR. S'il vous plaît, une fois de plus, applaudissons tous ensemble les RNG.
Et désormais, il est temps d'accueillir l'équipe qui joue à domicile. Vous les connaissez, ils sont champions d'Europe. Un tonnerre d'applaudissements, s'il vous plaît, pour les Fnatic. 6 fois champions d'Europe. Ils sont sortis des group stage suite à un tie-break décisif face au Team Liquid. Et ils viennent de nouveau à Paris, devant vous, défendre les couleurs européennes. Une nouvelle fois, tandis qu'ils montent sur la scène. Du bruit, s'il vous plaît, pour les Fnatic. Et sur la top lane, je vous demande d'accueillir comme il se doit le joueur à l'ascension fulgurante, Wipo. Dans la jungle, le viking danois, du bruit pour Broxa. Sur la mid lane, le prodige européen, Caps. Au poste d'Anekari, le capitaine de l'équipe et icône de l'Europe, FLICKR. Et au poste de support, l'explosif Unisong. Et bien entendu, pour les accompagner, leur coach, Dylan Falco. Et au poste de remplaçant pour commencer ce match, un tonnerre d'applaudissements pour King Soul. S'il vous plaît, mesdames et messieurs, une dernière salle d'applaudissements pour le Fnatic.
Mesdames et messieurs, les matchs vont bientôt commencer. Et s'il vous plaît, le Zénith, est-ce qu'on est bien présent pour ces matchs de folie?
No shortage of fans for that #1 seeded RNG, but they're staring down the barrel of a home crowd for the 4th seeded Fnatic. It is heating up in here and heating up fast.
We do say the home crowd Fnatic, but there are a lot of RNG fans who traveled here. There's a lot of signs in the crowd supporting that team, so a good showing from them too.
All we know is it's going to be loud, and we're going to have some great League of Legends today.
I can't wait to lose my voice, ladies and gentlemen. Today's competitors earned a spot in the Final Four after a group stage full of shocking results.
And I feel like the biggest surprise really was how hot and fast the Flash Wolves came flying out of the gate. No one expected anything from this LMS squad, and they delivered, seeded in our second semifinal tomorrow.
Yeah, also the fact that RNG and Flash Wolves are above King Zone in the standings was a huge surprise because people were expecting total domination from those LCK champions.
Now for Fnatic, many expected them to be sitting at the top 4, but the road in which they got here was definitely a struggle. Many up and down performances. Eventually they secured the 4th place spot, but it was a back and forth series up against Team Liquid.
And finally, RNG, the favorites coming into today's semifinal, had a bit of a slow start, arrived late at the tournament, but really ramped up, which is why they are so respected today.
And both of our teams that are on stage today had to fight through a tiebreaker to get the seed that they earned, which resulted, of course, in this bracket where RNG's first place finish earned them the choice of opponent in today's semifinal match, where they elected to face Fnatic.
Yeah, no surprises there, seeing as Fnatic was 4-6 and needed to play the tiebreaker. They definitely weren't going to be selecting King Zone, who even though they showed a little bit of vulnerability during the group stage, you don't want to face them in the semifinals regardless.
I mean, the reality is when you're looking at King Zone, Korean teams in a best of 5 are always scary to go up against, so I think it makes a lot of sense that RNG would want to avoid that. I know a couple of fans were expecting them to perhaps go for the slightly tougher opponent, but we'll see how they stack up again here today.
All right, so once again, we introduce an EU representative versus a team from the LPL and what is turning out to be a rivalry of its own at international events.
Now that said, I've got some good news and I've got some bad news for European fans. The bad news is that the historical matchup between the EU LCS and the LPL is currently 15 to 28. It is not great, but most of that damage has been done in group stages. When it comes to best of series, it's technically 2 versus 2 with it completely tied.
And a year ago at MSI, it was G2, EU versus LPL, and they took them down 3-1. Worlds was a bit of a different story. This is clips from the quarterfinals at the World Championship, where even though Fnatic had just won a tiebreaker to make it into the best of 5, they lost 3-1.
And Caps did mention that this battle today would be a rematch from that quarterfinal matchup, and I think that both teams have evolved a lot since then. We've got some of the young players gaining more experience, they've gone through their own trials and tribulations, and now we get to see the development of that growth today.
That's the big thing here. While it is a rematch between the orgs, we have to consider the growth and evolution of these two squads from that World's quarterfinal matchup through the group stage to this point today.
And frankly, Fnatic have kind of gone through a rebuild a little bit. Yes, it's been up and down, but they were so dominant in their home domestic region. When they came in, it was just a question of, can this Fnatic that had domestic superstars show up on an international stage? And as far as Caps is concerned, absolutely.
Yeah, also keep in mind that they're playing with Guipo despite playing most of the season with Soaz. A lot really did change for Fnatic in this group stage when compared to the Fnatic that was so dominant in the European LCS regular season.
And going up against RNG, it's going to be a tough opponent considering when you consider the first half of the groups, RNG went 2-3. Second half of the groups, 6-0. This team took a while to understand the meta and to find their form, but my God, have they found their form.
And it's really Uzi that is leading the charge right there. He said, this is the strongest that I have ever been. He is the king of ADCs, and we are sitting in an ADC meta.
And they're putting an unbelievable amount of resources towards him, letting him take jungle camps, letting him take multiple lanes of free farm in the mid game so he can power up to these absurd points and really start carrying games.
The question for me is if the rest of his team, like Xiaohu in particular, can stand up to the explosive nature of Caps.
Well, the paths that both of these teams took to get here had a lot to do with who was doing the heavy lifting throughout the group stage.
Yeah, we just talked about those insane numbers from Uzi. Yeah, they're pretty much giant. Reckless as well has been slumping, so it is really looking like a large mismatch on paper based on how many resources the teams are willing to put into them and also their output after they get gold.
It's actually terrifying how much work Uzi is able to do for his team. I think it is very easy right now to call him the best AD carry in the world. And for Reckless, who, as you identified, has been struggling, he's going to have to overcome a lot because he has a huge sense of pride for his fans. And to disappoint them would be a big burden on him throughout this series.
And of course, the question was on Reckless's effective champion pool. We know that he can play the Sivir. We know that he's brought out the Jhin, but we want more of that Xayah that he showed to really break the tiebreaker between North America and Europe.
Well, if we're looking at an advantage for RNG in the bot lane, I want to turn our attention to the mid lane as well. Xiaohu versus Caps. Caps coming up big for Fnatic throughout this tournament.
Caps has been such an impressive performer, especially when you consider what he was back at Worlds to what he is now. The growth that he's made in such a short amount of time to become one of the big carries for Fnatic is such a big deal for the young player.
And meanwhile, this is not the Xiaohu of MSI's past when he's getting these solo kills on FLICKR. Xiaohu has slowed down. Domestically, he was very inconsistent, started to warm up for playoffs, but really he's just playing fully into the Uzi strategy, making RNG a very binary team.
Yeah, and these are potentially two players that have struggled with consistency. Even though Caps has looked amazing, he has a frighteningly high death total, both in team fights, but also in isolated situations. There is a cost to all the aggression he's putting out in lane.
Well, there's going to be a ton of pressure on all four of these players today to dish out the damage, to carry their teams through the team fights. But now's about that time when I want to turn my attention to you guys, put you on the spot. Here on our first semifinal of the tournament, I want to know who's going to run away with it and return on Sunday to go for the title. Jad, we're starting with you this time around.
Dash, back in November, this was a 3-1 series for RNG, and the teams have definitely changed from then. Caps has stepped up his game, and I think RNG has more heavily committed towards Uzi. But just looking at their performance in the group stage, I think Fnatic can jump out to an early lead, can take a game off of RNG, but the team fighting and the skill of Uzi, I think, will get them another 3-1 victory.
Our RNG 3-1, Bettius, what are you thinking?
Listen, Europe, things are not looking good for us right now. I think there is a clear way in which Fnatic could win this series, especially through Caps, but They're not going to do it today. I believe RNG will take the 3-1, and I think, unfortunately, Fnatic will need to surprise me if they want to take this series.
Another 3-1 here, Frost. What do you got?
I'm going to mix it up, and I'm going to say a 3-0. I think that Uzi has all of the momentum behind him. He wanted 2 championships. He's already got his LPL title, and you heard it in the opening tease. He wants that MSI title, and the only way he's going to stand up to Flash Wolves or Kingzone is if he 3-0s Fnatic today.
Now, something that we haven't talked about too much is the fact that Karsa is starting. You saw it there when the teams were announced as they lined up on the stage. And so, again, in the developing picture of how these teams interact, does that jungle matchup change the way you view this series here, starting with Karsa?
I actually think this is a bit of a strategy around the level 1s. Not necessarily that RNG have a plan for game 1, level 1, but they might suspect that the enemy team does. It's been kind of the nature, the blueprint of this tournament. And so if FLICKR, who is known for his very bizarre, aggressive, and creative pathing, is just sitting back and studying what Fnatic are doing, it could give them an edge later on in the series.
All right, well, there you have it. It's time to send it over to the casters to bring us into our first semifinal bout. Enjoy.
Thank you, Dash, and thank you, Paris, for playing a wonderful host. My name is Clayton Captain Flowers Reigns, joined by Martin DeFicio Lunga and Chris Papa Smithy Smith here for this first semifinal.
Oh,
you boys
boy.
ready?
It's an exciting one.
I am so excited. It is going to be a fantastic game. And for this first game, RNG have selected red side. It was their choice for side selection. They were the higher seed, so that's where they want to battle.
Yeah, not a big surprise, seeing as RNG is the kind of team that loves to grab things like an early Karma pick for themselves. They can flex into 2 lanes. And also we know they can pick things like Graves against a first pick Trundle. So they have a lot of good answers on the red side.
And they already briefly mentioned about Karsa starting. It really does buck the trend, because usually when we've seen these Korean squads come in and start with a jungler, they usually choose the more unpredictable jungler, the more aggressive jungler, and the pathing jungler who really benefits from watching that jungle pathing in game 1 is the one that usually sits on the bench. This time, they're going to the pathing jungler game 1. Like they mentioned, perhaps to make that early game plan from Fnatic predictable.
Well, we're already into picks and bans, and the first ban from Fnatic is almost immediate. The Kai'Sa will not fall into Uzi's hand.
Yeah, if we follow the trends of the tournament, then Fnatic will not play Kai'Sa, and they have not shown us Ezreal either, other than 1 single game from FLICKR. So there is a chance they will ban that way from Uzi as well. But they could surprise us and change things up with the first picks. Yasuo ban against Caps, well, he's insane on it.
And I really like the Karma ban on blue side in particular. RNG have been very good at flexing Karma, so valuable when you have access to the overall last pick. So it makes sense to me that on blue side you have the ability to ban that Karma.
And you can just see Fnatic's overall focus towards Uzi. You ban his Kai'Sa, you pick his Ezreal, and you ban out 2 of the best supporting champions for him to hard carry the game.
This is a very big thing. You guys can see the graphic down the bottom of the screen. It's showing the shared champions in the middle. It is a little bit tricky because it does look like Kai'Sa and Ezreal are there for both Reckless and Uzi. Well, Uzi's played them a lot. Reckless only once per champion. The fact he's first picking Ezreal here is a change for Fnatic, and it's a very good change.
And it also allows him to hold on to the jungle pick, because we're kind of expecting a certain matchup to come up here. We were thinking first pick Trundle into the Graves, Karsa one of the best Graves players in the world. But we rush away from that, and the Skarner priority that wasn't there in the group stage is actually jumping right up when we jump into the semis.
Yeah, we have to remember that Skarner was the pick that Karsa used a lot back in the LPL.
With the Zac as well.
With the Zac, where MLXG was not really favoring that one, but with Karsa playing his second game at MSI, he shows it very early.
It's all about those kidnappers, being able to put one of your opponents out of position. The opposition, however, to deal with that Skarner, they're going to be locking in the Olaf. That's one of the answers for it, as well as putting Caps back on the Taliyah.
And Olaf and Taliyah are this roaming duo that can invade. They can roam to bot lane. They're also very strong at level 1. Olaf up there with Braum as a super strong level 1 champion. So it seems like Fnatic is drafting to our expectations already.
Yeah, because one of the big things we looked at for Fnatic in order for them to win this series was the 2v2 around the mid lane needs to be impactful in the early game. You have a strong skirmish jungler, you have a pushing mid, and the Taliyah can roam to the side lanes, which is a good way to shut down Uzi.
Very interesting to see the Braum priority go way up. A Hylissang fallback champion. There could be further support bans as well to try and force Hylissang onto the back foot. It also stops them from having the Supreme level 1 of Olaf and Braum, but the priority is noticeably changing for RNG.
Very true, but also interesting that RNG are focusing a lot on Whippo up in the top lane. The Camille ban, the GP as well, so some of the carry picks for him. We know that he can play both the tank and the carry style, We famously, of course, saw him play the GP against Team Liquid in the tiebreaker that got Fnatic towards the semi-final, but it is, of course, taken away. Ornn, I like that. Just get rid of it.
Yeah, Ornn, the champion with the third highest pick and ban number together. Yeah, pick and ban rate, I should say, among all champions throughout the group stage at MSI. They do want to ban that one away, keep that away from Let Me, as Alistar will be the final ban from RNG. We'll see how Fnatic want to answer this one. One more to go for them, and it will be Zoe kept into the hands of Xiaohu.
And I'm very interested to see where Xiaohu goes against the Taliyah, because traditionally you pick very strong lane bullies against Taliyah. Cassiopeia, I think of as, that's already locked in.
I think that's mid lane Aurelia.
That's a very possible. We were thinking about mid lane Aurelia against Karma, has a very good ability to all in there. This could still be the mid lane Aurelia, like you mentioned.
Yeah, it is flex for now, but there is definitely a chance it goes mid lane against Taliyah specifically. We can talk more about the matchup if we see it. I want to see if Hylissang wants the range support or the Tahm Kench. I noticed in his solo queue games, he was practicing Soraka, these kind of picks, even though it's normally not really his playstyle, and looks like he's just going towards the melee support.
And Tahm Kench Ezreal, such a safe lane, can rotate as the game goes on, but largely around the safety, of course, very hard to lock down the Ezreal at the best of times. It does mean they can double down around Broxah and Caps, and they're roaming, and no bot lane can be safe.
And it looks like Fnatic is seriously thinking about this Pantheon pick right now.
Come on, Flowers.
I don't know. You gotta
Flowers.
give it to them. Come on, we're having fun with it. Now, instead, they do want to go for something a bit more in the meta, a bit more normal for what we've seen Whippo have a lot of success on. The Scion is going to be locked.
And they have to be very conservative because they need more information about this Aurelia, so they go for basically the strongest available laner with the Ornn banned away. Now RNG, show us your cards. Where is the Aurelia going is the big question.
It's going to be interesting to see with the last pick. They are considering all the options if they want to just grab a choke at top lane, or Vladimir doesn't actually fully give us the information.
No, we don't have our answer.
It can definitely still be Aurelia mid with the Vladimir top on their side. I'm also noticing that Uzi is sitting on teleport at the moment here in the champion. It can still change, but it typically is the Ezreal that grabs TP, unless he wants to go for fast push style in case.
Typically the Ezreal, but Reckless has been the one to also buck the trend and go for heal and the more selfish summoner. I was talking to some of the AD carries around the world and saying, if not Ezreal, are there other TP AD carries? The only one I heard mentioned was Ashe, another utility AD carry.
Right.
The Caitlyn would be all about pushing. The uptime on that sheer pushing ability would be massive. We'll see, of course, they can wait longer on the summoners.
Baby.
Mid lane Aurelia.
There we go. Seeing them lock it in so quickly when they already knew the mid lane matchup gave it away a little bit, but you still have to consider the flex option. This is such an interesting matchup, and Xiaohu coming out on a huge carry. It is important to note, it's very much a snowball pick. You cannot fall behind.
And naturally in the 1v1, also you kind of need level 6 to have an all-in, because you will get shoved out in the early levels by the Taliyah and just her suite of wave clear. It's all about timings this matchup. We'll return to them as the matchup evolves.
And of course, those timings, they're also going to be dependent on the junglers. Who's there at the right time? Who's paying proper respect towards this matchup and making sure they can come out on top in that 2v2.
Exactly, and I do want to confirm also that we have TP from Uzi coming in this game. He wants to try and fast push against Reckless, but insane pick and ban face already from
Oh
game one.
yeah.
We're already off to an incredible start, boys, and it's only going to get better from here as we jump into Summoner's Rift for the first time in this potential 5 games here to decide who gets to go on to the final here in only a couple of days. It's game number 1. As you can see, Fnatic taking out onto the Rift now to the cheers of the crowds. Don't know if we're going to get anything at level 1. We have seen a lot of delayed level 1 action so far at MSI.
And that's kind of the thing, is that when it comes to the analysts, they were very one-sided on the RNG prediction. I don't think you or I would change too much there. It does feel like RNG are the big favorites, but there's certainly areas of RNG you can attack that were still there, despite the fact that their results were going very one-sidedly positive in the second round, Rob.
Yeah, and one of the ways can start level 1 for Fnatic with them getting an invade off, get some information on where the enemy jungler starts. They've actually done that really well during MSI, and it allows them to snowball.
They have so much ability to check brush. They have the Ezreal Mystic Shot. They have the Olaf Axe. Either of those hit and good things can happen. At delayed level 1 that we've seen so much recently will happen here. We also were expecting a roaming mid from Fnatic to profit on their side lanes. Get Bwipo or Reckless and Hylissang going. Maybe even the invades of Broxah on the Olaf. They've got that here in the Taliyah.
They got it, and also we were questioning a lot of the bot lane picks. Both Hylissang and Reckless with Sivir Braum almost every game. This one here, they show us first pick Ezreal. They have a safe lane and Tahm Kench, so they picked what they consider one of the strongest 2v2s they can grab that can stay safe.
It's strong, it's safe, and they also have a combat summoner advantage in the heal because it did end up being the teleport Caitlyn coming through from RNG.
We know if Fnatic wants to come out on top here, early game advantages are one of the ways they can do it. Broxa steals away the red buff from Karsa. He'll get himself that nice early advantage, head back into his own jungle.
And this is one of the level 1 invades we just talked about, how they can get Broxa in to get him slightly ahead of the enemy jungler. This Karsa in this game. Meanwhile, we are of course looking at the stats of Fnatic's early game, which has been very strong during MSI. It's the late game that has faltered.
RNG in their 6-0 run as they entered this game. They had 2 games where they faltered against both Kingzone and Fnatic themselves in the second round robin. They struggled, the early game didn't suit them. They needed a big shift in the mid game.
And the early game for Fnatic, one of the guys who's also able to carry those leads and translate them into more advantages for the team, not just himself, Caps. An incredible performance so far throughout the group stage. You can see some of those numbers on your screen right now.
Very impressive. I'm still a very young mid laner, 18 years old, only his 2nd year playing as a professional.
One thing I wanted to mention is his damage share is right up there, 31% highest for mid laners. He actually still has Reckless pick up most of the team's gold, team's farm. So it's still going to be a very high damage number, and he doesn't necessarily need all the farm funneled into him to pull that off.
Oh, top lane, Whippo is going ham.
Oh, no mercy right now. Forces out the Sanguine pull from Let Me, who gets himself back. Should have the empowered transfusion here in just a moment, but won't decide to use that. Instead, just goes for the back. Doesn't want to try anything too risky.
All right, good stuff from Whippo's side. Meanwhile, in that mid lane with the Irelia, as you highlighted earlier, Papa Smithy, you typically want to get a few levels. Level 6, especially if you fully stack up your passive when you're killing these minions under your turret, you can all in very easily.
And that's the timing. It's all about lasting the minions, probably with your Q, the Blade Surge, and then the all-in as the jungler comes when you ping level 6 with the Disarm is a really nasty combo.
Exactly. Another thing is also when you get your Sheen completed, it's all about the burst damage. It's very effective for you as Irelia to just have the enemy mid laner push you in, dash to a minion, and then once you have your passive fully stacked up, 4 stacks on it, if you can land that stun onto the enemy from your E, there's really nothing Caps can do in the 1v1 fight, because then you can all in with Sheen, ton of burst damage coming from your side, and Caps will have to just run away. So this Irelia pick, while it is risky, there's a lot of kill pressure from Xiaohu's side once he gets level 6, and that's Sheen.
Speaking of risky, Let Me finding himself in a spot caught between 2 enemy players. Broxa now gonna have to flash away. Karsa looking to make this one happen. 2 versus 2 here in the river. They're able to find first blood for RNG, but can Let Me get himself away from Whippo. Stun's probably gonna come through. Whippo flashing away from that. Whippo grabs 1 kill, but now he'll surely fall. It's 2 for 1. Going over to the side of RNG, but can they get Karsa away? Whippo utilizing the power of the passive. And Caps cleans it up. It's 2 for 2. Bottom side, Uzi having to run away from Hylissang and Reckless as they go in, looking to find the stun. One more tongue lock. Flash into the power from Hylissang. Reckless needs a little bit more damage to find it. Ming taken low. Almost taken down. One more shot could do it. And Reckless grabs kill number 3.
The bot lane that lost 2v2 against Uzi and Ming in the group stages just managed to secure a kill against the same dual lane that shot them down so hard.
Catharsis for Reckless and Hylissang, and also the crowd here in France. It's a big start, and it started off looking a bit hairy for Fnatic. When we started off this action, it was clear that Irelia would have first rotation. No surprise, the double all-in comes into Broxa. They turn on to Bwipo. Caps is going to keep firing out damage, and Fnatic getting the first kill really started the seesaw.
And after they kill Whippo here, they know, okay, they have to try and get away from the passive, and that's really a big advantage for a Sion. Even if you technically drop down 2 for 1 early, you can still keep fighting, and then we go down to the bot lane. This is such a huge moment for Hylissang and Reckless, and so important for a best-of-5 series that you start this way in game 1.
We were talking about Fnatic early game. We were talking about how they needed to be able to hold their own 2 versus 2 bottom, and how the mid and jungle needed to be a strong 2 versus 2 as well. They just showed us that's what they've done.
And when we were thinking about bot lane, we think pick the strongest 2v2 available. That's not Ezreal Tahm Kench. It balances aggression, but it's mostly on the defensive side. So for them to actually get the 2v2 kill, we haven't seen those since the Team Liquid game. The last time that RNG went down in the first round robin when they were hitting the bindings freely onto Ming at the time, and this is a really big piece of momentum for Fnatic.
Now Xiaohu hit his level 6. He has a red buff. He completed a Sheen. He has all the tools he needs to start playing really aggressive against Caps, and there's no flash on this Talia.
Amusingly though, to actually stack up the passive, he probably wants the minion wave on his side so he can Blade Surge in and not take auto attack harass with Summoner Airy the entire time. It's a very fickle timing for when you really get the maximum value out of the all-in disarm, and you want the Skarner there as well. Skarner himself, level 5, at the level 6, soon to follow.
Level 6, such a big difference for that Skarner for Karsa in terms of what he can do, what sort of plays he can set up. You can see on the bottom side of the map right now, Uzi and Ming just continuing to push up, utilize the shoving power of the Caitlyn early on to keep Reckless and Hylissang below the turret.
Yeah, that TP coming in handy for Uzi. It is really just built for him to just perma push the lane. Caitlyn is a pick we did not see a lot of during the group stage because most of the AD carries agreed it was too slow. Building 3 crit items before you could really carry was just not good enough. But Uzi's trying to make it work by just perma-shoving with TP.
Some more thoughts on that, but we'll hold them for now. Here comes Karsa.
Whippo gets himself away with the ultimate, does manage to get that one going before anyone's able to get in the way and interrupt it. Neither Karsa or Let Me had flash available to try to block that path. Meanwhile, Caps is going to be handed off the blue buff to just continue clearing these waves and staying safe from Xiaohu.
All the AD carries to discuss. I feel like Caitlyn's the one that over the years has been discussed the most, the power trough in terms of combat and team fighting in the mid game. The one thing we've always known is get that BF sword, roam around the map. If you actually got first target in this game as RNG with a smart gank, then roaming around a BF sword, Caitlyn with teleport would be insane, as Xiaohu's coming from behind Cap.
He's getting baited, no?
To find this one, it's going to be a full-on 2 versus 2. Xiaohu now still looking to find the damage onto Caps, who's trying to cut himself away, unstoppable onto Brox. Xiaohu having to try to maneuver. It's Karsa that grabs the kill onto the mid laner.
And we just talked about Irelia getting her ulti, getting her sheen, and suddenly Karsa and RNG are looking towards that mid lane. Small bait, honestly, from Caps' side because Broxer was coming, but then Karsa shows up as well.
And Xiaohu had a flash advantage. Caps with no flash, very little he could do after the ult had disarmed as well. So at the end of the day, Xiaohu does pick up the kill. It'll be that window wish. It's a melee champion without flash, but that is exactly what they picked the Irelia for.
And you guys said during Champion Select, it's a snowbally matchup. You can't afford to fall behind. The CS is left a little bit wanting, but Xiaohu still 1-0-1, working on the parts for that Trinity Force. On track to hit the power spike when he needs it.
Yeah, so if you're Caps, you have to respect that, of course, the fact that this 1v1 is difficult. You have the ulti on this Talia. Looking at the side lanes, Vladimir sitting just with flash and has the pull. Tough to tower dive. Bot lane as well, there's mobility from Uzi's and then a jump from Ming. So the lane's actually pretty hard for Caps to go towards and easily set up a kill. But Fnatic, they need to get creative. They need to find a way to start snowballing one of the side lanes.
It's that front foot gameplay you're looking from every time you see Talia and Olaf locked in. They don't have mid priority on the bot side. Usually you'd love to be able to roam to the bot side. Not going to be possible. They do have a control ward to play top side. First objective top side in the Rift Herald spawning soon. Right now the Caps and Broxer duo are being stifled.
Remember that Karsa still sits with flash and ulti on this Skarner. He's looking towards the stun, misses. That's the long range stun we mentioned earlier. If you manage to connect that, it sets up a very easy all-in for Xiaohu.
Take another look at how they found this kill onto Caps a moment ago.
And it's because they had that mid lane priority around bot side where they had the control ward. Xiaohu knew he wouldn't be spotted. Who's baiting who was the question we asked, but with no flash, Caps just can't stay alive.
Not any way out of that one. Brox unfortunately got himself away. It was not a 2 for 0, but still not the kind of trade that Fnatic wants to be a part of early on in this game. Bottom side again, we're taking a look at here. Very close farm. Everything's pretty much par for the course. And previously you would think that Ezreal in this matchup, remember, was trying to just get an advantage early, use something, get himself going in the mid game before Caitlyn can really become powerful. But now with the double tier build, he scales into the late game as well as RNG are on to the first trade.
That is very true. RNG also looking to secure this one. Broxer maybe throw an axe over the wall. Nope, too late for him. Let's see actually we get a fight around it because Caps here.
Bench joining, but Ezreal still in lane.
Wants to see if he can find the seismic shove. Does land it. Tongue lashed over the wall, finds its way onto Xiaohu, but that'll be it.
To your point before, Captain Flowers, about Ezreal versus Caitlyn, it is, of course, still about the mid-game for Reckless. Like, Uzi, as you can see now on a BF sword, well, Reckless already got Sheen and Pickaxe. Like, in a couple of minutes, he's going to be way stronger than Caitlyn, and that's going to be the lane Fnatic should play around. Let's see what happens bot side.
Bottom side is Hylissang knocked up into the air. It's a full all-in coming out from RNG. Hylissang will be the sacrificial lamb, so Reckless can escape.
Passive stacks up just as Karsa is coming and have loved where Karsa has been on the map this game. It's been much more about coordinating with his lanes than MLXG. That goes for a bit more of those coin flip plays at time. We return to mid lane, but one thing I also want to raise, the game goes on. Vladimir in a side lane with items, very difficult for anyone to lane against. Irelia in a side lane with items, the same story. Where Caps goes, if Fnatic doesn't control the tempo, or if they're not the ones pushing towards objectives and actually forcing RNG to react, is going to be a struggle, because I think Caps will kind of be exposed, because it feels like everywhere around RNG are foes he can't handle in the 1v1.
Yeah, Fnatic's only way to win the side lanes is by outnumbering RNG, with Tahm Kench ulti, with Talia ulti, like these very mobile champions. Here's the Tahm Kench ult towards the mid.
There comes that mobility, Xiaohu trying to outplay this one, getting himself away. A lot of dashes around, back and forth. Can he actually find the escape? He sidesteps the tongue lash. Xiaohu with some quick feet, but not quick enough.
Very fancy. That's what happens with the Irelia and the ability to blade surge again and again. The new side of the newly reworked Irelia, but no escape path there. That's what we mentioned with Flash Down. 45 seconds of that has let me and Bwipo, they're just having a tank fight up top.
Just a little bit of cheeky back interruption coming out from Let Me there. Doesn't want to allow Bwipo to have the back timing that he desires. He'll keep that one interrupted, just go back and forth a little bit. As you can see, Broxy clearing out the Scuttle Crab in the top part of the river, going back to farm up more, but I want to take another look at this play mid.
Yeah, this is the most standard play from Fnatic and Hylissang specifically. He loves to just go from base straight to mid and try and secure a kill. There is no flash from Xiaohu's side, so the moment three members show up, he can't get away. Good kill for Fnatic, and this is what we talk about. Use Tahm Kench ult and Talia ult to outnumber RNG. Don't try and beat them 1v1. You don't have to in this game.
Fortunately, the outnumbering potential hasn't led to aggressive wards, and I feel like Talia, Olaf want to know where Skarner is at all points. They know where Skarner is now. He shows in the bot lane. Just wants to pick up another cannon minion towards his quest, as he does have already the Targon's Brace. One thing we should mention is that when that Targon's completed, the extra wards for the Skarner, when they have the teleport AD carry, means that someone like Reckless trying to cut between lanes is going to be spotted by the extra vision only available to RNG.
Yeah, you can see their answer to all the mobility of Fnatic.
Yep.
Silence. Teleports everywhere.
Hey.
Mid lane TP, AD carry TP. So when you show up with three members, they show up with three members. Luckily for Fnatic, they will be there faster, as there's a 4.5 second, of course, challenge time on TP, but that's a small window.
Top side, you can see Bwipo giving Let Me a pretty hard time here, preventing him from getting back to the lane as quickly as he wants to. Bwipo sitting in a good spot so far, has the Abyssal Mask completed, so he'll be magnifying some of that damage, not only for his own roar, but also for all of that DPS that Caps will look to bring in these mid-game fights. Let's see if RNG can collapse here onto Fnatic. They have Karsa waiting. Wants to come around, looking to find this one. Flash into the pole, still looking to set something up. You're going to see Hylissang coming in with the Tahm Kench ult potentially here as well. Xiaohu able to find the kill onto Cap. Bottom side, it's 2 versus 2 as Hylissang falls. Now you've got the TP in from Let Me as well. Broxy looking to finish off the kill onto Xiaohu. Instead going to be found up and nearly brought down before he can find that kill, but he does grab one onto Xiaohu. It's Karsa who gets the kill back onto Broxy, while bottom side, it's still a 1 for 0, going the way to RNG.
Ended up a 3-for-1 overall. Hylissang was trying to get there and help his mid laner, interrupted on the Abyssal Voyage, and then collapsed upon. That first turret does go the way of the teleport. Caitlyn, this is worrying times for Fnatic.
And you can see on your screen right there, RNG, when they get bot first tower, a 4 wins, 0 loss record at MSI.
Yeah, it's suddenly looking pretty rough here for Fnatic after that skirmish. It was fairly even before the play, but let's see it again. Karsa's kept this flash ult for so long in the game.
And Fnatic have never known where Karsa was on the map because they haven't had the deep vision. You'll notice on the bot side, that's the interruption that was lost in all of the disarray. Hylissang going down, outnumbering everywhere, and this is without even the teleports being tested.
And we just see that game plan from RNG with the Irelia plus Skarner, in case there's something like a blind big Talia from Caps. They had it ready, they instant locked it in the second phase when they could. And that's been a big pick for Xiaohu in the mid lane. But of course, Karsa is the one who's controlling the early game.
Karsa 2-1-4 on this Skarner, 6 out of 7 kill participation. He's been doing a very, very good job so far for RNG, setting up these plays and facilitating the kills, getting where they need to go. We'll see now if Fnatic can make their collapse onto the top side. It's Meng who's caught out. 4-man collapse here should spell his doom as Reckless cashes in on there.
Outnumber RNG, they're trying again.
Meanwhile, Uzi now found himself in a really bad spot as Caps cleans it up and grabs another one for the European.
And Fnatic needed a moment moment like that where they were the ones ahead of the play. Very nice roam coming in from FLICKR. Ming had no flash, he was going to go down as well. But Talia catching Uzi in transition. His teleport is down. Uzi's going to take a long time to get back out on the map. And in the meantime, Ezreal gets re-farmed top lane, and Karsa, he's just trying to find objectives where he knows Fnatic is not.
Fnatic top side means Drake should be free on the bottom side, but Fnatic will be happy to get some of this global gold into their pockets, taking down that top lane tier 1 turret, tying the gold lead up, as Xiaohu and Karsa do have this second Drake for free. Cloud Drake needs more movement speed, and the rest of the team can now reassemble in the mid lane. But Fnatic, with Rift Herald under their belts, may be able to use this to set up the next play.
Oh, we might get something around the mid lane this game. So much action.
Karsa looking to find some kind of a pull here. We'll see what he can get, but it doesn't look like much of anything. The flash away from Hylissang.
And Hylissang does have the QSS super early into the game, not even a boost too, for the roaming phase to allow him to be the more tasty one. Akarsu could not get access to his buddy.
And I really like the early purchase of the QSS from Hylissang, making sure that if anybody else gets pulled by the Skarner, you devour them, you save them. If you get pulled by the Skarner, you pop the QSS, you're out.
I think this graphic here is very important for this specific game. Actually, we can look at it after the replay. It is just everyone going top lane.
And it's a out rotation, but there's a reason why I want to speak right now, and it's because the timing for this, guys, was so narrow. We're closer and closer to the time where the early Targon Spray Skarner can put down wards, can make these sort of plays very obvious and know about it very early and avert them. There's that narrow time until the quest is cashed in. So very nice from Fnatic to execute when they could.
And this game right here, the CS difference between Reckless and Uzi at 15 minutes was more or less nothing. There were like 2 or 3 CS in Uzi's favor. Reckless and Hylissang, they managed to get a kill in their lane. It's been a much better game for Fnatic's bottom lane, and that is important to highlight compared to what has happened earlier.
Fnatic now pushed down the mid lane, looking to siege up against that tier 1. Now they're going to be collapsed on RNG, trying to make the play, but Karsa's going to drop first. Unstoppable Olaf falls down next, 1 for 1 so far. Xiaohu looking to push this even further, able to grab the kill on the enemy support. Whippo tries to get himself out. Reckless still going to be firing, but Fnatic have lost the fight.
And Aurelia, and specifically Vladimir, got access to the back line. So much damage with the Hemo Plague, and Xiaohu diving in. It's a 2 for 1. Doesn't look like it's going to translate into objective, though, just yet.
Oh, it's so hard for Fnatic to peel here. They only have the Tahm Kench, and he can save 1 member for the start of the fight, but everyone else can't really assist when there are so many champions from RNG rushing at the squishy backline. Bruxer tried his best, but that's why he went down first.
But my excitement is in the first 20 minutes, it has felt like a boxing match where one team's made a jab and then the other team has had a counter jab. It hasn't been just one team monopolizing momentum. As we start this fight, it's looking like it's going to be very even, but Let Me gets easy backline access, and that's when it gets good for Orange.
And Uzi's free hitting the entire fight as well, because all the focus is on trying to stop a Vladimir or an Aurelia. This is exactly why we mentioned Xiaohu and this snowball pick. If he gets ahead, he's tanky enough and he's strong enough to dive into the back line, and he's hard to shut down. If he fell behind, you can basically just kill him almost instantly, but that's not going to happen. He's going to get hysterics soon.
And to the point you mentioned earlier, Papa, talking about how this looks like it's a boxing match, how these teams are just going blow for blow, and the gold is very close. Remember the first time these teams played each other in the opening game of the group stage here at MSI 2018, it was super close the entire time. It ultimately came down to RNG getting a big Kog'Maw ulti that revealed everyone to take the fight that wins the game.
Yeah, they played very close games, and honestly, this is the perfect start to this series here. Fnatic's bot lane is doing better than in the group stages, but we still get to see Uzi on a Caitlyn pick up kills in fights, and Xiaohu, of course, on this Aurelia hit. A surprise pick of game 1, down in CS, but up in kills.
And also has the ability, eventually, whether it's in the side lane or just diving the back line in a 5v5, to actually close gaps on an Ezreal, which is usually a very difficult predicament when he hits 40% CDI, regardless of which the Sheen upgrades he goes. Can notice on the screen it was Trinity Force Ezreal this time.
And speaking of the Ezreal, the Muramana fully charged, second tier, only recently began charging, so that won't be an Archangel's Seraph's Embrace anytime soon, but he is on track to getting that late game power.
It's going to be a smaller window, though, than we normally see, just because Uzi has picked up that first turret gold. He has farmed very well, and he has 2 kills and 2 assists, so he's actually going to hit his 3 items fairly soon. He's already sitting with about 1,000 gold in his bags. Reckless, though, is stronger at the moment. Let's see what happens bot lane. Is the outnumbering tactic again?
Let me outnumber, drops the Hemo Plague, just trying to buy a little bit more time. TP is going to be coming in here. Uses the flash to get himself away. TP's completed. Xiaohu and Uzi both decide to show up. It's going to be big. It's going to be a party. And RNG brings the whole crew. Whippo tries to escape, but Carson's coming in as well to make sure there's no way out. And RNG grabs themselves 3 for free.
This is exactly what we talked about, how Fnatic will come down first, faster than RNG, try and secure a kill when they're 3v1. But RNG's TPs, there are many of them, and they will react fast. It takes a couple of seconds, but the moment they show up, they're going to turn it around.
And when I saw the Hemo Plague hit multiple members, I knew Let.Me was going to come out healthy. Taliyah had not committed to any use of the Weaver's Wall, and RNG said, okay, Conga line to Baron, let's take it now.
This is what I like to see. You don't just take the fight, you take the fight plus more. Baron should drop rather rapidly, down to about half HP. Fnatic looking to come in, cast flash, collapse from the bottom. Broxa has done some amazing steals in the past, but he won't be able to get in there just yet today. RNG have the Baron low, but they are going to be forced off of it. Xiaohu now going to fall in the back line, trying to fight his way out of this one. Won't be able to, and Fnatic now have access to the pick.
All of RNG respected Broxus so much that they stepped away to try and kill him, but suddenly the Baron resets and RNG, they're low.
Responsibilities have changed. It's now RNG's work to shut down Fnatic's attempt here. Uzi potentially getting put out, and Whippo hits a big ult. Cap goes on a killing spree as Fnatic now have themselves exactly where they want to be. They head back into the pit.
Now Brox is low, but that means he does the Baron faster. They're going to try this. It looks like the answer is yes. Brox, because of the nature of Olaf, wouldn't be baited out in his ult. They clear the blast pad. Nice stuff, Fnatic, but does that mean Baron?
Hylissang flashing over the wall just to hit that blast cone and keep Karsa away. Let.Me goes in. He finds the kill into Hylissang. Karsa now into the pit as well. RNG doing everything they can to stop this. Whippo on the front line, stunned up, blocked off immediately. Cap grabs the kill into Ming. It's still going to be a 2 versus 4, but Fnatic can no longer do the Baron.
This game is insane. Both teams, we're only 23 minutes into the game, are dancing around the Baron. They're not done yet.
Let.Me not going to let Fnatic get away. He grabs 1 kill. Can he find any more? Can't quite get another transfusion off, but Xiaohu will like to clean up the mess. He grabs the kill into Whippo. Steric's Gage gonna proc as he makes his way out, and Reckless will still survive.
They've been fighting for 2 minutes around this Baron. It keeps seesawing one way and the other. The boxing analogy is really working out. Nice one, Papa Smithy. They're going to have to back away now, though. We finally can breathe. Flowers can be a bit of a back rub here. You can have plenty more team fights to go in a moment. Every time Xiaohu comes in, there's some creeping dread, but this time it's Xiaohu in trouble.
Not even just a moment, mere seconds before another fight breaks out. Xiaohu collapsed upon by a couple different members of Fnatic here. Hylissang stunned up Xiaohu, trying to get himself away. Expertly dodging around, but only so long before he does fall to Caps.
All right, Reckless gets an Infernal Drake and a secure kill on Xiaohu. What's happening in this game is that there are so many abilities that allows you to jump around the map a lot faster than we normally see.
Name a couple of them, Deficient.
Okay, we got Taliyah ult, we got Tam Kenshul, we got TPs on our side. Sion ult. There's so many ways to force these engages, and teams are not reacting fast enough to what's actually happening, and they're forced to just take the fight. This is after RNG stepped away from Baron. Fnatic gets to engage.
And just the seminal moment of Uzi was for once left all alone. He had no way to get out that time, no exit plan. Uzi survived for the greater cause. Take a deep breath, we look at the gold. It's basically even at 25 minutes. All those analysts are suddenly now sweating because this game's right up in the air.
And we talk about how close the gold is. I want to look at the gold right now specifically on the AD carries, these players that these teams so often play so much around. You can see both of those tier items now completed, although the second one isn't fully evolved yet into the Seraph's Embrace on the side of Reckless, while Uzi has hit that 3 big crit item spike that we always talk about with Caitlyn.
And if you're going to ask me, these two guys run each other 5v5 with, say, 4 or 5 items, I do favor RNG. I think they're the easier execution, but those points don't matter if a Baron goes out. It's going out fast.
Why run at each other when you can run towards the objective? Fnatic start this one up. They get it very low, down to about 3K. RNG will force them off.
Oh, I think Fnatic maybe could have tried to just finish it. Kaza had no flash to get into the pit easily, but just by him showing up, all of Fnatic, they step away. They don't want to risk a steal.
They have to go very defensive. That means they give up position. The mid lane turret goes down much later than expected at 26 minutes. Small nose ahead for RNG.
This is kind of what we were looking at, though, in this matchup, how Fnatic, early and mid-game, can definitely match RNG. They can definitely force plays that can get them ahead. The question is, can they play the late game against Uzi and RNG?
And that's kind of the issue, is that 5v5, again, you're just looking at the champions, you heavily favor RNG on that particular side. The Vladimir, if he gets the Emo playing off, the safety of Uzi on the Caitlyn, and then just Xiaohu getting fairly unkillable and still doing relevant damage. Probably giving Guardian Angel next.
Right.
The 3-item build here. That's the part where it falls apart for Fnatic, because I like Taliyah in an extended fight when she's chasing, when she's sieging, but in a 5v5, she's outclassed.
Well, right now, Fnatic have done a good job keeping this game very close. Again, I want to harken back to the first time these two teams played each other. It was so close for so long, and it all came down to that one decisive moment, that final fight. And we may just be staring down the barrel of yet another game like that, as every time one team gets something, the other immediately responds, and I think it's going to have to come down to who makes the bigger play around this Baron.
Exactly, like, I'll take 5 more games like this, where there's so many globals and so many fights happening where teams need to react instantly. We can bring up a couple of new play-by-play guys if we need more team fighting. If you run out of steam at some point, we got to
come on, I got you. I got you. We got this. 5, 6, 7. It don't matter how many games. We'll get through it. But Fnatic and RNG both putting everything out there already just in game number 1 so far here. Fnatic with control over the mid lane right now. Want to get that one pushed out. As you can see, RNG just playing the side lanes a bit.
Fnatic's best ability right now is the Weaver's Wall under a turret and trying to take an objective, but hold that, boy.
Can't get himself away. Let me coming in from the flank. That's going to be big onto the back line as Reckless tries to get himself away. Going to be taken down before he can as Proxen tries to get some revenge. Let me take it incredibly low. He gets a double kill before he falls, but that is RNG's fight. Whippo shot to pieces by Uzi in the back line, and it's 4 versus 2, favoring RNG.
And we just talked about the 5 versus 5. We talked about how Fnatic needs to show us they can still win later on in the game, and we get a big team fight with this Vladimir hiding in the flanks, taking down Reckless.
And I was going to say, Weaver's Wall behind an objective, take the siege, but make sure you look at your flanks. The flanks were very relevant, very early. Let me get in the back. You know it only goes one way. Reckless didn't get to play a lot of League of Legends. He was just dead.
No, Reckless had no chance to do anything there. Not with the Shirelia's Reverie plus the death cap damage. The Vladimir just ran wild in this fight.
So Let Me right now sitting without teleport.
Where's Let Me should be the question every moment asked by Fnatic. And they don't know.
They don't know right now. When he goes in, Hillersang's own way to try and save his AD carries actually to devour him before he gets hit by this ulti here from Let Me, and before Reckless then tries to jump away to stay alive, because it will deal damage even in the belly of a Tahm Kench.
It's so hard to criticize your tunnel vision on who's in front of you. We saw Bwipo clearing a control ward, but it never spotted the Vladimir. He was looking forward. Vladimir from the backside. Good luck, goodbye.
RNG now stand with Baron buffs all over the place. They got themselves a 4,000 gold lead, and Cap may have been caught out. Now that is a huge pick for RNG, and the push will mount itself in earnest now.
Get another pick here. Caps could not stay alive. No QSS on his side. Not sure if he would have survived with it. But in the end, it's RNG with another one, and they can push into this turret here. Uzi's also getting very fed.
And then you have a one-man siege machine in a 3.5-item Caitlyn. There is no real attempt to initiate here, but they need Caps to make something happen. This should be inhibitor RNG.
RNG can brute force this one down rather effectively. Trap line being set up as well, just to discourage any possible ideas that Fnatic may have of trying to fight back against this. One more auto attack does it, as now RNG can fall back, do whatever they like, really. Still 10 seconds left before Caps is back in the picture.
There's no way for Fnatic to suddenly TP in behind them or appear and surprise RNG. So at this point here, Fnatic needs the perfect engage to their team fight. It's just very difficult when you have a Sion rushing in, but your Taliyah and Ezreal actually don't want to reach the back line. No. They want to kill whoever is in front of them, and the peeling is just the Tahm Kench Devour against so many champions that can reach Caps and Reckless.
The only 5v5 that looks like a Fnatic 1-1 is if there's a huge fight, all the summoners are down, and the Weaver as well is actually able to cut members off. Like you say, Deficio, given that Taliyah and Ezreal can really only hit the first target, Letme's going to be somewhere. Skarn is going for another flank. Hell, Irelia might be from behind. That's the issue, is that working with all those variables, nigh on impossible.
There's also a chance, though, with Fnatic knows exactly where the flank is coming from, that they can actually kite back.
Pulled off of the wall! An awesome collapse from RNG.
Right in the face of Caps, and he's not going anywhere.
And that was the chilling smite from range to actually pull him off the wall. The Impeo after that one. Caps gone for damage. He was the one with all the gold. Sadly, the QSS, I think that time again, wouldn't have got him out. Nice play by Carson.
And even when we were talking about Caps and his performance on this team and how he's done so well for Fnatic at MSI so far, one of the criticisms we had was the fact that he gives up a lot of deaths, either isolated or in team fights, and the past 2 deaths have been critical losses for Fnatic.
That's why this game has really highlighted how Fnatic has played during this group stage. We see a lot of focus on getting early advantage to big plays, like this one.
Oh, Hylissang wanting to collapse on this one. Uzi into the front line, gonna be caught off, gonna be picked off! And he is out of the picture. This may be exactly what Fnatic needs. A double kill for Broxton, but Xiaohu's onto the back already. Grabbing the kill onto Reckless. Caps respawns as Hylissang tries to flash over the wall to keep himself alive. Xiaohu taken very low. Whippo tries to channel the decimating smash, can't quite find it. But now with Caps back alive, RNG has to head for the hills. They will be able to pick up Hylissang on their way out. No way for that Kench to escape the bench. Goodbye, sir, as Xiaohu picks up the money for it. Fnatic shouldn't grab anything else here.
See the power of that late game. Irelia, she can single out one. She can get backline access. She may not have AoE like the Vladimir, but she's doing the job at killing Reckless. The Reckless can't kite around like we saw Prey and some of our great Ezreal players in the group stage. Caps respawns and walks up. Suddenly the goal leaders ballooned. It was so even 5 or 6 minutes ago, but now it feels like it's RNG's game to lose.
See it engage again. It's Cyan ult combined with Hylissang.
It's a pinch between the two.
It's a great engage from Fnatic, also knowing that Irelia and Vladimir are not there when the fight starts, but this is the problem. Once they get into the back line, you can't stay alive.
No. Xiaohu doesn't even end up losing the Guardian Angel here. Diving behind the entire enemy team, taking out the AD carry and escaping with his life. Against an Irelia like that, against a Vlad like what Letme's got this game, Reckless's job is very, very tough.
Fnatic were able, in the mid-game, to still find kills. The kills on top side, I will not remember, from smart moves. They knew how to use their comp early. We've outlined it a couple of times as a casting team. When it comes to the 5v5, the champs just outclassed.
I mean, also, I just think RNG, with this smart plan, against what they expected to be a roaming mid laner from Fnatic, by bringing multiple teleports on their side, by having a mid laner that can really skirmish against Cap. So if he's not leaving his mid lane, he's gonna be under pressure from this Irelia pick. So RNG had a smart plan to deal with what Fnatic was going to bring.
Uzi gets himself away from Whipplo's initiation. And 5v5 breaks out. Karsa going to be taken low, still able to find the suppression in the back line. Goes Xiaohu, looking to find the damage onto Reckless. The peel is not enough, and the killing spree for RNG is only going to get better from here. Xiaohu taken low, but it's a double kill for Uzi. It's a double kill for Xiaohu, and that is going to be the ace for RNG.
That'll be game 1 as well. That time there was even the Surge Shield, but nothing can stop the Irelia from killing Reckless. That's all it's going to be about, and RNG going to win game 1.
RNG's late game team fighting trumps Fnatic this time around. They earned the victory in what was an incredibly close game, and they'll go up 1-0.
This is the kind of game 1 we wanted to see.
Yep.
Fnatic, they come out. They have Ezreal first pick for Reckless. They play aggressive in the early game. They get a lot of kills, but RNG show why so many teams now respect them, because they're reacting to this aggression. They are coming in with TPs. They're coming in with a game plan to shut down what Fnatic is trying to do. And while it was back and forth, it could have gone both ways. Once we got to the late game, it was heavily in RNG's favor.
Turns out if we can make the 3-point plan to try to target RNG also had the humility to take a step back and understand where they're weak. There were those consistent signs that the early game might be a struggle for them, but they adapted well. Was it completely flawless? No.
Right.
Was it exciting in the mid-game? Hell yes.
I think Fnatic can go into next game with the same plan. Yes. Because this comes down to then some of the execution in the different skirmishes you're finding around, or the Baron where we had 5 minutes of just non-stop back and forth. In the end, though, they look at this Irelia and Vladimir and they say, okay, late game, with just-in-time Kench, peeling for AD carry is just not possible. They needed to get ahead before that.
They've got to be more aware of the flanks as well. We saw multiple times where it was just the Irelia or the Vlad able to get into that back line. And like you said, with just Kench, you've got to have eyes on those flanks all day long, or else there's just no way for Reckless to play League of Legends.
Well, we've had best of fives like this where the big favorites coming in didn't look vulnerable, looked like they were going to be counted out very early. This one went blow for blow a long time. Fnatic will be frustrated with no victory, but at least they know that they can at least get there and attack RNG.
All right, to hear more about that explosive game number 1, let's now hand things over to the State Farm Analyst Desk.
Thank you very much, Flowers. Real quick, everybody, give me one of these. Check that pulse. You feel that? That's 43 kills in 35 minutes. Are you kidding me? Action-packed game 1 here to kick off the series in RNG. They come out on top with an Aurelia mid of all things.
Welcome to the LPL. We like it fast, we like it bloody, and Fnatic got their first taste.
It was such a great game to watch, and I love the draft in its entirety because we saw developments from Fnatic, we saw RNG bringing their own essence of uniqueness, and I think overall, both teams had a clear idea of what they wanted to do. Fnatic kind of geared towards that roaming style that they found a lot of success with towards the later half of the group stages, whereas for RNG rather, they went much more towards kind of a 1-3-1, but then it devolved into split team fighting.
It's in the past, but he's let them die.
Yeah, and I like the fact that Fnatic was able to make the game not about Uzi versus Reckless, but about Fnatic versus RNG. It got really crazy around the Baron pit, only at the very end where you're thinking like, oh man, Uzi's starting to do damage, but really I thought was more drawn to Xiaohu's Aurelia and Letme's Vladimir diving the Fnatic backline.
Now, while we do have the champ select on our screen, I do want to kind of point at two things. Now, Vedius, we were talking about this idea that if you draft for teamfight across from RNG, you must execute better on the team fights. And my problem is that when you have Ezreal and Tahm Kench, I don't know how you get a safer bottom lane in terms of creating space or a safety net for Reckless for him to consistently get blown up in those team fights. And it wasn't just Aurelia diving back there, it was also the Vladimir. I don't know what other options you have other than just taking away those champions. You have Essence Shift, you have Flash, you have Tahm Kench Devour.
Stand next to Tahm Kench.
That is probably the big thing that we're going to be pointing out in just a bit. Before we get to those late game team fights, let's take a look at the early game and the way it developed. We asked Fnatic to create some action in the early game. Look for those advantages as opposed to trying to extend it super late.
Yeah, and this one was actually, I think, in RNG's favor up until the point where they killed Bwipo. Then is when I think there was actually a little bit of miscommunication, because I think we could have turned the 2v2 here. Caps basically goes in after Bwipo's dead, but I think he would have had to run away from this, completely zeroes in on the kill to Karsa. Xiaohu then later thinks, oh, maybe I'd be able to help, but this was advantage Fnatic.
Yeah, and then it just continues to snowball from there, and finally Reckless and Hilly find their revenge, and they manage to find a kill in the 2v2.
And I think there were just a number of things that happened that neither side expected. Number one, the fact that Fnatic had priority mid with Taliyah pushing the Aurelia under, they assume that they can go for this fight because their mid laner should get there first. But he doesn't. He sacrifices the farm, Xiaohu joins in, and immediately it turns things initially in the favor of RNG. Whereas in the bot lane, they seem to think that they have all this pushing power that they can just freely push up the lane. But Tahm Kench is not a support that you can just freely underestimate. And the moment Hylissang sees an opportunity, they just go for the all-in. And I love that we're seeing so much more confidence from this 2v2 of Fnatic, because that is what many fans were expecting to see.
But this game, oh, go ahead.
I agree with the confidence there, but my only issue is that once we had kind of these weird skirmishes in the mid-river, we never got to see a moment where Caps was able to execute on that bot lane, you know, Taliyah ultimate. I wanted to see a bit more roaming there, and I don't think that's necessarily on Caps. I think that's on RNG. They set up beautiful traps, making sure that he was never able to impact those side lanes as much as we would have wanted.
I mean, there was no time to breathe in this game. It was kills on kills on kills. We even saw a triple TP into the bot lane from RNG to salvage this play.
This was amazing. We kind of referred to it as the clown car TP because it looked like one. You're thinking, okay, surely this TP just gets canceled, but then boom, boom, boom. It wasn't even perfectly timed. You're like, wait a minute, it's still going?
It was literally a moment we were like, no, cancel the TP. Oh, okay, 2 people. Oh my God, 3 people.
Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, this is just one of those things, though, where it's we're developing meta within the tournament. We saw the TPs on the Ezreals. Now they're coming out on the Kates, and it's very clear that RNG is looking for fights. They're so confident in the way they stack up against any other team in this tournament when it comes to champion interaction.
Yeah, I think that RNG are such a good team fighting team. Like, Frost, you and I talked a lot about it coming into the tournament, where you were like, they play 1-3-1. I was like, no, they play team fight. I'm like, oh, it turns out they play both. But whenever you see RNG versus Fnatic, it always gets to one big team fight at the end. And Fnatic need to find a way in order to either have the better team fight comp or avoid it completely, because every single time RNG are coming out on top.
So let me ask you again, Chad. Where should Ezreal be standing in a late game team fight?
Right next to Tomcat. He was standing right next to Hillsong, but then he shift flashes away and doesn't get feast until the end. Yes, the ult still would have landed, but they would have been able to disengage a little bit, and this just showed such a drastic difference. Look at Uzi's health bar, 100% untouched in that last fight.
And I do want to give a lot of credit to Let Me to find that backline dive. And Vedius, you just talked about how they're able to play a 1-3-1 and a team fight. A champion like Vladimir is so dangerous on a team like RNG. Not just because they can flex it, but he can play the side lane, he amplifies the damage into the team fights, and I don't know if Fnatic have an answer to it rather than just banning it or grabbing it from Whippo.
Now, the gold differential at the end of the game makes this look like a stomp, but you could see it on the gold graph there. It was an explosion of gold, an infusion of gold over to RNG following that team fight, a Baron, and a couple more to follow. It was really close up to that point.
Yeah, and I think if Fnatic can have a positive takeaway from this, it's that they were still pushing the tempo on RNG and they were putting themselves in a position to win. The worry is they have done that 3 times against RNG now, going back to the group stage, and lost 0 of them. So they can't become self-defeatist about this, and they have to just figure out how to execute a little bit better in team fights.
And this kind of comes back to what we were discussing earlier on, right? These games are going to come down to one big team fight, but if Fnatic choose to draft more towards it, they're going to put their lanes at deficits, which is another way in which RNG will just snowball because we know how dominant players like Uzi are in the laning phase. So they need to find a compromise. They need to find a way in which they can have a solid laning phase while still being able to draft good mid-game team fights, and Vladimir, I think, could be the big pick for that.
All right, you're pointing to Vladimir. Fnatic has elected to stay on blue side for game 2 as they have side choice in 2 and 4. So as well as the Vladimir pick, how else are we looking for Fnatic to give themselves some breathing room here within this series?
You know, I really liked Fnatic's pick from blue side. I thought the priority on Ezreal was exactly what they needed to do. It's now just a question of, do they feel that they can run this back and just have slightly better execution? You know, team up more with that Tahm Kench so you're not, you know, flashing away into danger. Maybe they change up the Scion. I know that Whippo is very confident on the Scion, but I really do think that a Shin could throw a wrench into plans. He can build the banner, he can challenge the Vladimir in the side lanes, and get to team fights faster.
I was going to ask, because it's clear there, we like the team comp they built, but with both a Vladimir and an Aurelia diving in, is there something to be said for removing one of those 2 picks, you know, from the side of RNG so as to create more safety for Reckless in those team fights?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is just about being more cognizant of how much diving power they have. As to Frost's point, I did like their draft. Maybe the support pick changes to Braum if they can try and grab that earlier on in the draft and it could block some of Aurelia's skills. But other than that, I liked it.
For me, I think there are 2 main things that Fnatic just have to recognize coming into game 2. Number 1, find this kind of compromise in terms of the draft. But number 2, like you touched on it, this flanking and ability to dive as well. Like we heard the casters talking about it, and I just think that the ability for Let Me and Jahu to constantly find this pincer attack movement in every single fight is something that Fnatic have to be way more aware of, especially seeing as this is the 3rd time that it has happened against them now.
With this game as an example, does Fnatic want this many kills in that little time? In terms of the overall combined kills per minute, is that the style of game that Fnatic wants to be playing in this best of 5?
Absolutely. You do not want to take RNG, a slow, steady game where you just snowball up into 25, 30 minutes team fights, because as the other 2 have been saying, they keep running into this brick wall that is RNG's team fighting. Get an advantage. Don't fight them on fair fight. Use caps, especially on early playmaking champions like the Taliyah, and just try to break it earlier.
Looking for the same number of skirmishes, but for a few more to fall in their favor. Game 1 of Fnatic versus RNG has certainly delivered. Don't worry, Game 2 of the series is coming up after the break.
S'il vous plaît, veuillez faire un tonnerre d'applaudissements pour les RNG!
Flash away, Carson looking to make this one happen. 2 versus 2 here in the river. They're able to find first blood for RNG, but can Let Me get himself away from Whippo. Himself away, TP's completed, Xiaohu and Uzi both decide to show up. It's gonna be big, it's gonna be a party! And RNG brings the whole crew!
Coming though, they're coming. I got K. Nice, kill them all. We need to peel Aurelia.
The peel is not enough, and the killing spree for RNG is only going to get better from here. Xiaohu taken low, but it's a double kill for Uzi. It's a double kill for Xiaohu, and that is going to be the ace for RNG.
Predator, proud partner and official monitor provider.